Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to get started here. My name is Eric Clark. I'm one of our client success associates, and some housekeeping items, I suppose, before we get rolling. This is a presentation from remote, so working from home. If a dog breaks in, or a cat, or a baby, or a toddler, I apologize, and hopefully our internet stays good. We haven't had any issues there.
Eric, if a toddler breaks in to your room at your house, could you please get that on video for us so we can see it happen? Thank you.
Yeah. So real quick, before we do get started, I wanted to just simply call out something gained and something missed through all of this, just to kind of lighten it up a little bit. Something I've gained by working remote for the last, I don't even know how many weeks it's been. Appreciation for being present in the morning when my kids wake up. So that's been really awesome. And as far as something I miss, I actually miss the morning and evening commute more than I ever thought I would ever miss a commute. So that was my productive time in the car to listen to Audible or podcasts. Shane, what about you?
Yeah, something gained. I think I used to think I was pretty plugged into my local community, but through all of this, I am now even more so with takeout orders and walking to different places and stuff. So I've really appreciated kind of getting a feel for the neighborhood a little bit more. Something I don't miss is the commute, Eric. I think you're alone there. I enjoy that I don't have to drive, an extra 30, 40 minutes every day. So.
Well, everyone's got their different perspectives. So hopefully you're finding things that maybe is some silver lining, and some things gained or maybe some things missed. So let's go ahead and get into it. Shane, you're going to control the slide on this. So,
Gotcha.
First things first, I want to just kind of paint a picture and tell a little bit of a narrative here. I think some of us remember a time back in the early 2000s. We'd have a GPS for getting around. We'd have a camera. And this was the time before smartphones. We access email on computers, and maybe on your BlackBerry if you had one. These things don't seem to be related at all, but suddenly a smartphone was able to do all of these things. It baked in your GPS, your camera, your email, even a flashlight, and a whole bunch of other utilitarian types of things. And if we kind of fast forward to 2007 when the iPhone was launched, there were already a lot of smartphones on the market. It was said that the iPhone wouldn't grab market share. It was gonna be a total flop. No one's gonna pay that much for this device, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And kind of one of the main takeaways there that Apple did differently than everyone else is it created an ecosystem where it tied everything together in a cloud world, whereas these other ones didn't. So if we think about some of the applications we use as businesses, there's a lot of them. Some of these might look familiar to you. Certainly some do to me. Slack, Gmail, Shiftboard is a app that helps with shifts. It sounds like someone said they couldn't get sound. Hopefully everybody can hear. Just want to make sure that was okay. So HubSpot, Trello for project management, Dropbox for file storage, Cisco for phones, Tableau is a business intelligence software. So there's a number of different things you can utilize as a business to kind of run the business. And instead of going to each one of these and having separate subscriptions, so on and so forth, it really brings us to where we're at today and the reason we're doing this presentation, which is Microsoft 365. And as of yesterday, officially, and Shane would correct me if I'm wrong, we went from Office 365 to Microsoft 365. That's not confusing at all. So we want to talk about that also. And if we look at kind of the one-to-one replacement insofar as what Microsoft has, everything is in the same spot as the other slide with Slack and Gmail and Tableau. But essentially Slack becomes Teams, Tableau becomes Power BI, which is Microsoft's business intelligence. Prezi is PowerPoint. Cisco or whatever phone system you're using can become Teams. Outlook for email, Shifts for shift management. These are just examples. But even like HubSpot, instead of that, you would use Microsoft Dynamics, Planner instead of Trello, OneDrive instead of Dropbox, etc. You kind of get the idea. The difference here is this is an ecosystem. It's all under one roof. It's all tied together by Microsoft. And their sole focus is business grade software and applications. So you don't have to go to all of these different places to achieve this. It's all under, one product suite, so to speak. And I asked the question to Google, what is Microsoft 365? And this is the answer that I got from Microsoft. And ultimately, it's your productivity cloud across work and life. And, working remotely, those two words have never blended together so well when we talk about work and life, because right now we're living in our homes and we're working in our homes, and everything's kind of a melting pot. So it's been great to utilize that stuff both personally, but also mainly for business, and additionally for some enterprise companies that we work with. So, Shane, I think you're up for the next slide here.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Eric, for that introduction. Before I dive in here a little bit, I just want to call out, we are going to get a little bit into the weeds on some of these apps today and show you guys the nitty gritty. Our intent here is, though, just to kind of give you an overall perspective of everything that Microsoft 365 can offer, and how it can help you work from home and make your life easier and more productive. While we walk through some of this presentation, feel free to interrupt with any questions you might have. If you want to see something live, we can try and share our screens and do that. We'll have an opportunity for kind of some how-to demonstration towards the end here as well. So just to call out, as you can see on the screen here in front of us, there are a lot of apps, as Eric alluded to, that are baked into Microsoft 365. Some of these, you'll obviously know very easily, like Outlook. Everyone's been using Outlook for their email in business settings for a long time. PowerPoint, Excel, Word, those types of apps are going to be really well known by everyone. Some of these might not be as common, but you'll see as we walk through this presentation how a lot of them tie in together. And that's what makes Microsoft 365 so useful, is how it all integrates with each other, not necessarily one individual app or another. So we're just going to dive into a few of these apps, as I mentioned. We'll walk through some details on some of these. The first one we've got up today is OneDrive. So OneDrive is a file storage app. It offers the ability to access your files from your cell phone, from your computer, from a web browser. You'll have offline access to those files if they're stored on your computer, so you can edit stuff while you're off the grid, so to speak. And then, of course, it also protects your files and is encrypted and helps you kind of stay safe from losing your data if your hard drive or something like that was to crash. So as we're talking about OneDrive, I do want to call out, there's two kinds of categories of files. When we're considering in a business setting, you're going to have, individual or personal documents, such as maybe your payroll stubs, your benefits information, things that are work related, but maybe are just for you. Your OneDrive is going to be a great place for that type of file. Another good example might be a working file, something that you're editing or creating that you don't want to share with your team yet, but it's still work, right? And then the other side, which we'll get into a little bit later, is the file sharing piece. And that's kind of more when we're going to have teams and groups of people editing and accessing batches of files, and we'll show what that looks like as well.
So I'm definitely a culprit of this meme. There's a number of folks that, whether it's considered a good practice or a bad practice, that's to be discerned. But I certainly am one of those that saves things to my desktop. And previously, you'd get scolded for that by some IT folks, saying you really shouldn't be doing that. You should save it in a shared place or what have you. And with OneDrive, that kind of changes quite a bit.
Yeah, I would almost argue the opposite now, Eric, with OneDrive Backup. So as part of OneDrive, you have the automatic ability to turn on a backup and sync feature that's going to sync your desktop documents and pictures right into your OneDrive. So you don't have to worry about if something's on your desktop anymore. Is it being backed up or is it safe? You can store stuff right on your desktop if that's how you do things. Personally, I use my documents folder for all this stuff that we're talking about here, and it works really well, right? And it's still backed up. You're still going to have it offline if you need it. It's a really, really great and really important feature of OneDrive that makes it so useful. So a lot of times, maybe you have something stored in your OneDrive and you still want to share it out with others, 1 or 2 individuals. We just want to walk through what an example of that looks like here. So this is an example folder you might have in your OneDrive. And you can see if you click on that 3 dots icon on a folder or a file, you're going to get an opportunity to share that folder. If you click share there, you're going to get a whole slew of options. As I mentioned, we can kind of dive into the specifics of what this looks like a little bit later, but you can pick and choose who's going to be able to edit and see this file, who you're going to share it with, if they're internal to your organization or external, etc. And then you can send that share message off to get them into the document. So moving into a little bit more specific example for files, I'm going to jump out of our presentation here and show you what it looks like to collaborate in a few different files that are stored in OneDrive or Teams. So if I pull up my file explorer here, I've already got my Teams folder synced on my computer here, and I'm already in the demonstration files we want to show you guys today. So I'm just going to open these up. We'll give you details on how this process works a little later. But like, let's say I want to edit this Excel document with Eric, who's also in this same team, so he's already going to have access to this file. And you can see he shows up, Eric Clark is here, he has the workbook open. If you so choose, you can click on those folks and start a chat within the document to talk off of the document, but still collaborate at the same time. And you can see, I can tell where Eric is in this spreadsheet. We can add additional breweries here if we really wanted to, right? So I can type in maybe another brewery that I really like, Platt Park Brewing, down in Denver, Colorado. And that's going to be real time. Eric's going to see that change. If he enters in some information in this spreadsheet, I'm going to see that change. The beauty is this is also auto-saving. So by default, documents that are in your OneDrive or shared in your SharePoint or Teams files are going to automatically save and be updated real time for others to see. And you can see that Eric just made another change there. A couple of cool features that you can see in this document as well. You have a share icon up here, and so you can share this document out with others if this is maybe stored in your OneDrive. And you can also view some details, maybe the name of the document. Since other people are editing it, I'm not allowed to change that right now because that would break some stuff, so it's grayed out, but you can see where it's located, the name of the file, etc. So jumping out of this spreadsheet, I'm going to swing over to another PowerPoint that we've created, showcasing some of our favorite breweries. And you can see as I hop right into this PowerPoint, I can tell already with these blue highlights and this notification up in the corner, while I was gone, Eric made some changes. So it's really slick. It's really convenient when you're, maybe working from home and you've got a team of people collaborating on a document. You can quick and easily see some changes that the other people have made. You can see where they're at in the document. Same as with the spreadsheet, you can, maybe start a chat with the other folks or share this out to other people. A really great feature that I do want to call out as well that's baked into all of these applications is the ability to view a version history and revise it based on that. So if I click on that version history link in that top menu bar, you're going to see all the modifications that Eric and I have made to this specific PowerPoint. And if I wanted to, I can say, you know what, I don't like all those changes that Eric and I made today. I'm going to go back to the version I had yesterday. And I can just click that. You see it's going to pull up in a whole new PowerPoint with the previous version. And I could then, restore to that, or I could save this as a separate file, etc.
So one of the first questions that came through that is, I think, aligned with this, says, do you have to choose the backup or is that automatic?
Okay, so I think that's in reference to the OneDrive setup. So a little bit of both, Heather. When you set up your OneDrive backup and sync, it's automatically going to choose your desktop documents and picture folders. You can't change where that setting is. But it is, you have to like go in and set it to backup unless your IT department has automated that process. So there are a lot of tools out there to manage your environment, and you can control like automatic sign in to OneDrive and enable that backup feature, but that's going to be specific to an individual environment.
And the next question, how do you sync Teams files to your list of files to open? I'm not sure if that's in reference to having them show up in like the File Explorer or
yeah, I think that's what I am understanding. And we have that built into this presentation. So we'll show you how to do that in this presentation shortly. And then we can also show you in a little how-to demonstration later on as well. Cool, so getting back into this. So that's file collaboration, really slick and easy way to be able to open and edit Word documents, PowerPoints, Excel spreadsheets, any sort of Microsoft file, and edit it with your team on the fly while you're working from home.
And I'll just add in there real quick, a piece of the file collaboration. Shane and I built this presentation together collaboratively. Obviously, we're both working from our homes, but just simply as we speak to the remote stuff that's happening right now, it was really refreshing to have someone just physically work on something together. So we had the video chat open. We were both working on different slides, simultaneously. So individually, but together. And it was nice to just be like, hey, check this one out real quick. And then it was silent for a little bit, but I could see him working and he could see me working. So that provided some level of connectivity and presence that, it's more than just simply being in a document together. We talk about togetherness right now. I think it just means it's something a little bit different. So I wanted to take a minute to call that out.
Yeah, that's a great point, Eric.
And we all remember SharePoint, maybe not we all, but there's some of us that remember SharePoint. This is an antiquated screen grab from some ancient version of SharePoint, and it was pretty terrible. A lot of folks had a very bad taste in their mouth when they thought about all this stuff. That's changed entirely. SharePoint's really, it's the back end to Microsoft Teams, which is now the GUI front end interface for SharePoint. But SharePoint is the engine that backs a lot of this connected stuff and file shares and things of that nature. One of the call outs is kind of a neat thing. We've been asked a number of times by some of our clients, we have an intranet. Can we use, can we update that, or what can we do differently? And SharePoint can actually become your intranet. So you can showcase new hires or company announcements, or kind of have one central place to keep people informed. And it's really easy to do. It's not difficult at all. So I wanted to call that out also. Cool.
Before we dive into a little bit more detail on the Teams and SharePoints, I did see a question come in here. Is all of this connectivity and collaborating at any license level? In general, yes, the ability to collaborate on the documents and files is going to be available at any Microsoft 365 license level. I want to call out one caveat, and that's being if you don't have a license that provides you the Office applications, right? So the actual installation of Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, etc. onto your computer, you will need to do all of this in the web browser. But the collaborative features of all of that come with any license level.
Great question.
Yeah. All right, cool. So diving back into, as you mentioned, Eric, the SharePoint kind of sites concept, we wanted to call out a really cool and slick feature of Teams and SharePoint, and that's using files and storing files within your SharePoint environment. So a couple of really huge benefits that this provides you. The ability to replace a traditional file server is probably the biggest one, right? So if you have a physical server on premise and you're storing files on that, and everyone connects into that server to access those files, that's going to be commonly called like a shared drive, or maybe it's a specific lettered drive, like a U drive or an S drive. You might know it as one of those. That's going to be how people today or normally have used file shares. The way Teams does it makes it a lot more collaborative and easy to use from home. And you don't even need a VPN connection or anything to get access to your files, but it's still extremely secure. It also offers a lot of different ways to access your files then, right? So I just said you can access them from home. You can access them from your mobile device or from your computer, which we'll show in a moment, or from any web browser. You can get into those files as well. So it makes it really convenient that way. And then the other big benefit is you get nearly unlimited storage. So a lot of different Office 365 license plans, Microsoft 365 license plans offer SharePoint sites baked in as part of the agreement or subscription, if you will, and you get to start out about 25 terabytes of space in one SharePoint site or team. So if you stand up a team, now that team has 25 terabytes to store those files. And I don't know everyone who's on the call, but in my experience, that is a lot of data that you're not even going to use up across your entire organization, depending upon what you do and what kind of files you're interacting with. So there's no more worry about running out of space on your servers. There's no more concern for having to maybe upgrade your servers and replace drives when they fail, etc. So just to showcase a little bit about what this looks like, we've shown you a few ways you can access those files once they're in your Teams and SharePoint environment. So this is an example of us accessing files from within Microsoft Teams. So if you've got a team on that left-hand menu, you can click into a specific channel. In this instance, I clicked into the general channel of our client engagement team. And then across the top there, you'll see you have that files button. If you click that, you're going to see your files and folders listed in a traditional, file structure. You can sort it by name, date modified, who modified it last, etc. And so you can view and edit and open your files right from within Teams. Another great way is from within Teams, or even if you just go out to a web browser, you can sync those files down to your file explorer. So that's going to be a really quick and easy way to get them to open in your file explorer. And then they'll look like this, right? So very similar to if you have a file share structure on your server at your office today, you can sync those files right down into a folder. You're going to see those same folders and files right on your own file explorer. This is going to be synced down to your computer. You don't have to sync everything. So if you're, if you don't have enough space on your computer, you'll see these cloud icons showing you might have to download some files when you need them. But you can store them on your hard drive as well and make them available offline. And then any changes that you make to those files when you go back online will sync back to that team or that group.
And that's pretty easy to do that, Shane, to get those to show up in your file explorer.
Yes, yeah, so that's just this sync button right across the top of Microsoft Teams. If you open your SharePoint environment, which I'll show in a second, you're also going to have the same option. So like that number 2 option there, if you click open in SharePoint, or if you just go to a web browser and access your SharePoint app and you go into a specific team, then you're also going to get this SharePoint view. And you'll see you get the same files for that same channel that were in that general channel in our client engagement team. And you'll have a sync button across the top there to sync those down to your file explorer that way as well. So right. It makes it really easy and convenient, right? Lots of different ways you can access your files, whether that be from Teams, the web SharePoint, or right on your desktop. Cool, so switching gears a little bit, we did want to touch on the Microsoft phone system because we believe it is a really up and coming tool. It offers you the ability to make and receive phone calls. You can transfer calls between staff at your office very easily, and there's even an auto attendant feature. And then it has voicemail and contacts baked right in as well. I do want to note here there is some additional licensing for the phone system that would replace your traditional PBX or SIP trunks. So just keep that in mind if you do want to go down the phone system route, but we're more than happy to kind of show you what that would look like if you have specific questions. Eric, before we cruise on, I did want to call out, looks like we've got a question on Teams. So Sarah asked, when I upload a file in Teams from OneDrive and make edits, the original is not updated. Is there a way to sync them? So Sarah, you can't sync a file between Teams and OneDrive. They're 2 separate file structures. But what I would recommend is you can do one of two things. You can either share that file from your OneDrive with other people that need access to it and just keep the one file on your OneDrive. That'd be like a simple, quick, and easy way to share that file out and still have the edits sync back to your OneDrive. The more maybe permanent solution would be to get rid of the version on your OneDrive and upload it into a Teams location where everyone who needs access to that file can get to it. And then all of those edits and everything will just be in the file on your Teams infrastructure. And then looks like we've got another question here. Will you need to resync every day to have the most up-to-date version? No, so a lot of this is automatic. You'll get notices if there's some sort of error and something's not syncing. But in general, it will just run in the background and your OneDrive will automatically sync up to the cloud when you're online, and same with your Teams and SharePoint files. Cool. So Eric, moving on.
Yeah, I wanted to call out as we talk about this topic of cloud voice service providers. Gartner is officially known as Gartner Inc., but they're a global research and advisory firm that provides information and advice and tools for leaders in IT, finance, and some other industries. And they're a trusted advisor for, I think, more than like 15,000 enterprises in 100 different countries. So they take the time to gather these reports and look at market trends and try to predict where things are going to go and forecast some of that. So they're stating by 2023, 40% of new enterprise telephony purchases will be based on a cloud office suite. And the only players right now that they're identifying for that is Microsoft 365 or G Suite, which is Google Voice. I think this was done, this report came from August of 2019. So given the current state of everything we're going through right now, I have to imagine that things have changed in the favor of cloud providers for voice significantly since then. But it just goes to show where the market is heading and where other businesses are starting to put those dollars for investment. So maybe less in the antiquated way of telephony and more in this modern kind of approach. And if you go to the next slide, it's just interesting to see Gartner does this Magic Quadrant, which is just a series of market research reports that they've published for IT consulting. And SWICKtech is at one point we were a Gartner client, so we would look to these consumer reports that they would put together and try to make good informed decisions about who are the market leaders for different things that we would choose. And when we look at this for voice, Microsoft is definitely in the leader category. Google's in the challenger category. And if you don't know what Gartner or Gartner Magic Quadrant is, maybe spend some time with it. But it's good to see that the company that we chose to use for our voice platform is one of the leading companies. And so it's kind of reassuring and affirming.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So just to touch on some high-level points of what the Microsoft phone system looks like. If you're familiar with Microsoft Teams, the phone solution is baked right into Teams, and so you use that essentially as your phone, whether that be from a computer, a web browser, or maybe even your mobile phone. You can access and make calls from your Microsoft Teams app there as well. And then these are just showcasing some other hardware options. So if you're not super comfortable using your cell phone or talking through your computer speakers, they offer, a headset. You can get the traditional handset if folks still like having the hard phone next to them to make calls. There's some other options here like a conference room phone or a Microsoft Hub for conference rooms. And they offer speaker options as well as like room integrations to build Microsoft Teams right out into maybe an older conference room or something like that. And keep in mind, you don't need to be fancy, right? You don't need a $300 handset or headset to be able to use the Microsoft Teams phone system. You can go ahead and just plug your, Apple earbuds. Everybody's probably got a pair of these from one point or another in the last 10 years. You can go ahead and just plug these into your computer or even your smartphone and use Teams that way to communicate. And I do want to call out, I mentioned a little bit about this, but Teams Voice is really versatile, which is what makes it so convenient. You can use it on a desktop app or from a mobile phone or from the web interface. So any computer really or cell phone, you can get to your Teams environment and make a call, and it will appear as though you're calling from your business number. That we use Teams Voice here at SWICKtech, and that has been super convenient for working from home. The fact that, I don't have to use my cell phone or a different phone line to call clients and colleagues. I can just use Teams, and it just appears as though I'm sitting in the office at my desk. It's super convenient. Cool. So the next app we wanted to touch on is kind of how Microsoft Planner and Microsoft has built a task environment for you to complete your work. We're just going to touch on a few key items in this environment as to how you can manage your tasks and get work done and be productive from home. So Microsoft Planner is its own app, but it also, I think the true power of Microsoft Planner is that it integrates with all kinds of other apps within the Microsoft environment, right? We mentioned at the beginning, that's what makes Microsoft 365 so amazing, is its ability to integrate with each other. So this is a great example, Planner and Teams. So you can see here in my Teams activity feed that I was recently assigned a task in my Planner. And so I'm going to be able to see, I'm going to get a notice in Teams when that happens. I'm going to get a notice in my Outlook that I've gotten assigned a task in Planner. And I'll also see it in my Planner app as well. And you can get tasks for Planner from a lot of different places. So this is an example of a team and specifically a channel that I'm on. And you can see up at the top, we have a to-do or planner category. This is a planner board. And so you can create and generate tasks for this specific team. You can add individual users and deadlines. You can name the task. You can add attachments and edit those files right from within the task. It makes it really convenient to kind of plan and execute for a whole team. And then right from within Microsoft Teams, you can also view your planner. So if you go on the left-hand menu, you may have to click those 3 dots to get access to it, but you'll have a planner link. And you can view all of the tasks that have been assigned to you, whether those are tasks you've created or that others have assigned to you for a specific team or channel. And then, of course, this is also readily available right from within Microsoft Planner itself. So Microsoft Planner also integrates really well with Microsoft To Do. If you're not familiar with Microsoft To Do, it is pretty new. It is a task list kind of aggregator. If you've heard of Wunderlist, that came out 5 or 10 years ago. Wunderlist was like the hot new task manager on the market. And I think they started in Germany or somewhere in Europe, and Microsoft ended up buying them for who knows how much money. But they've baked that into Microsoft To Do. So it's a really, really slick, really easy to use task list. And it integrates all of these other tools like Planner and Outlook, right? So you can see here, I have an assigned to you category. This is everything that other people have assigned to me from within Microsoft Planner. And so these are going to be items that maybe come from a specific team from within Microsoft Teams, or just right from Planner or Outlook if someone else has reached out and assigned me a task. This is the Microsoft To Do My Day view, so you can just see, you can kind of input your own tasks here.
To local brewery, huh, Shane? That's great.
Yes.
Take the trash. This is,
like, you know, my day is usually filled with client-facing work, and so I had to come up with some fun tasks for myself to do for this screenshot here. But yeah, so you can see your My Day view, and you check off your tasks that way. And then it also integrates right with Outlook. So a lot of people are familiar with the task feature in Outlook, where you can flag an email and say, you know, this is the due date I want to respond to this by, or do this task by. All of that is baked right into Microsoft To Do and ties back into kind of the planner, the tasks feature. And so you can view all of your tasks in one convenient place. Cool. So before we jump into some how-to opportunities, we wanted to just call out one other big piece of Microsoft 365. We're not going to dive too far into this today, but we just wanted to.
There was another question from Heather.
Oh, sure.
Would you recommend using Planner and To Do over Asana?
Heather, I'm not super familiar with Asana. I use Planner and To-Do just because it integrates really well with my Outlook and my email. You know that we think that that's kind of the power of Microsoft 365, so it makes it really easy. But if you like Asana as your kind of task or to-do list, and you can, maybe there's an add-in in Microsoft Outlook or maybe even in Microsoft Teams that you can tie it into, I think that's where you see the real benefits and productivity adds, is when you can kind of tie all those things together. Because now I'm not jumping from Outlook to Planner to Asana to figure out my tasks. I just go right into Microsoft To Do and see everything I need to work on. But if Asana works for you and it can tie in well, then I would recommend sticking with that. Thanks.
Yeah. And also to ask, how does the Planner app compare to the Outlook tasks, features, and Trello? So this goes back to the beginning slide a little bit though, right, where you have so many third-party things outside of the Microsoft ecosystem. And, with modern technology, APIs and different things like that, where you can tie stuff together, it's become a lot better, but still having under that one roof, one kind of suite of products, that's probably the bigger value add. From a feature standpoint, most of these things are pretty even keeled. And so there might be some user preference behind some of that stuff.
Yeah, and I wouldn't, as I noted on this slide here, Outlook tasks integrate right into your Microsoft To Do app. So you can view your Outlook tasks and your Planner tasks all in one space, which makes it really convenient. You don't have to worry about jumping between the two. So you can still flag an email in your Outlook, and you can still have a colleague assign you a task from Planner, and it's all going to show up in one convenient place. We have a couple other questions. I'm going to just touch on Azure here real quick, and then we'll jump in to answer these other questions. Okay, so Microsoft Azure is a cloud platform. It offers you the ability to stand up entire servers or infrastructures and applications in Microsoft's data centers, and then you can deploy them globally, right? So with working from home, this can end up being really convenient to give your employees access to your server environment from maybe their home network, so that they don't have to VPN in. It also offers a lot of different security features. There's an Azure government version, etc. We're not going to dive too far into Microsoft Azure, but we wanted you to be aware that it does exist and it is available to you. And with that, we'll jump back into some of these questions here real quick. Eric, I don't know if you want to read these off here, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I don't mind doing that at all. Some of them, we must have struck a nerve here in a positive way. So I'm trying to read what this one says. All things we have, this is all things we have just in Teams, or we have in other applications in Office 365.
Oh, okay. So a little bit of both. Right. So we've done a Teams webinar before. Many of you, I'm sure, saw it. The Teams concept is that Microsoft Teams is kind of your hub for everything else, right? So from Teams, and let me actually switch gears here out of the presentation so I can show you a little bit of this without confusing myself on where I am. Give me one moment. All right, great. So just as an example, here's a Teams channel, and so we've got this team called Project Cheddar, and we're in the general channel. A lot of what we just talked on, the to-dos, the calendar, all that sort of stuff is going to tie right back into Teams, right? So from within Teams, I can access the files that we talked about. From within Teams, I can hop onto the to-do card here, which is just a Microsoft Planner card or tab, and view all of the tasks that are tied into this channel, right? So for this specific group of people, and we can add and edit these tasks right from within here. You can also view your entire planner from within Teams, right? So from down here, You can see my planner with all the different tasks that I have. So all of this is baked within Teams. It's also readily available from outside of Teams too. So if you want to access your files and you store them in a Teams folder, that doesn't mean you can't get to them from somewhere else, right? So I've got this Teams channel linked right here, and you can see that I can see all of the channels and all of the folders within those channels right in my File Explorer. Another good example is here's my Microsoft To Do app. And if I pull up my planned events, you'll see, I don't want to show too much of this, but you'll see I have all of my planner events right in my Microsoft To Do app as well. So it's a little bit of both. It allows you to access everything from within Teams, being the hub, and then it also gives you the opportunity to use other tools and features in the Microsoft suite to access them. Next question.
Sorry, so next question. There is an update from Planner To Do that I read about, which is supposed to come out in 2020. Any ideas on when we might see this update?
So I don't unfortunately have any official information from Microsoft, but I do know they have been working extensively on pushing out a lot of the Teams updates because everyone's using Teams for meetings and stuff right now. So I would imagine that would be later. I would guess more like third or end of second quarter for that sort of stuff. But yeah, I did see that they're kind of baking Planner and To Do even more together, so it might be more of a seamless app at that point.
Yeah, and there's some other questions around like is Trello going away or is Planner better? Hard for us to answer that. It's not that one is going away or anything like that. They're really two different platforms. One just has far more reach within the Outlook or Microsoft ecosystem.
Yeah, and Sarah, I was just mention on that front, Trello does integrate with Microsoft Teams and kind of the Microsoft suite in general. So keep this in mind, like if you have an app that your entire company is already using, we're not necessarily saying jump off of that solution that you love and go to Microsoft 365 just because. You might be able to find a way to integrate that app to work for your guys' workflow and your team. All right, cool. So we've got a how-to question, and guys, feel free to post any and all how-to questions that you might have. We're happy to kind of take some time here and show you a few different things. So this one is asking, can we show how to edit and clean up files in Teams? Can things be deleted from there? If so, how? Okay, absolutely, yeah. So let me switch gears here again back to a Teams environment, and I'll throw that up on the screen for you guys to see. All right, so we're back in our Project Cheddar demo team. I'm in the general channel, and we'll switch over to the files tab to show you where these files are in Teams. And just to give you an idea of how easy this is before I actually answer this question, if I hit this sync button across the top, you're going to see my computer's going to do a few quick details and get ready to sync. And then in my File Explorer, I now have that channel and all of its files baked right into my File Explorer and ready to go. And I can open those up from here and edit them, etc. So to answer your question, yes, you can manipulate and edit files right from within Teams. This is going to feel very similar to your File Explorer. You can even right-click and copy links to files, delete them, download them as a separate file. You can rename them here, move, copy, etc. Right? So for example, let's say I want to delete this document. I can go ahead and click delete, say yes, and that's going to go away right out of that.
I would add one of the, not to say it's a drawback per se, but like having the ability to put these things or sync them with your File Explorer is a pretty big deal. Because if you're in Teams all the time, like we are, you need to be working on something in here, and then someone's going to message you, and you're going to leave this kind of channel or tab, and you're going to go to a message, and suddenly you kind of lost your place. So when you do everything in it, it's kind of, that's one weird challenge that's kind of emerged, where it's nice to get some things out, but they're all still synced up together. So I just wanted to call that out real quick. That's something that's
absolutely. And just as another example to show you, you can do it from within Teams or the File Explorer, right? So I've got this recording.docx file, so this Word document here. I can pick that up on my File Explorer and just move it into a different folder. And you'll see in a quick second here, once this syncs back, that file is going to disappear. So if I, let's say I leave the Files tab and I come back into it, and there it goes. So there's that file disappeared. So you can manipulate the files and folders from within Teams or the File Explorer or the SharePoint environment. All of them are going to sync seamlessly together, and you should be able to do any of the above without issue. All right, I hope that answers that question. Let's see what else we've got here.
So Jeremy had said, so sync in Teams, sync the files to SharePoint and OneDrive at the same time?
So Jeremy, not quite. OneDrive and SharePoint are kind of the two file pieces. How can I demonstrate this? I guess I'll go back to my File Explorer. So your OneDrive, right? I've got my OneDrive folder here and all of my files in it. You can see my desktop documents and pictures are synced, right? So that's working effectively. Your OneDrive is separate from your SharePoint and Teams in the sense that these files are just for you. They're just in your OneDrive unless you explicitly share them out with other people. The files in your Team or SharePoint site are going to sync simultaneously between Teams and SharePoint, right? So that's going to be these other folders I have down here are going to be some Teams files, and they're also readily available in SharePoint. So if I call back to the team again, and I show you in Microsoft Teams, right, we've got this folder structure here. I can open this in SharePoint. It's all one. SharePoint and Teams are kind of tied together, interlinked, right? So you're going to see right here, I've got all of those same files available in SharePoint on the web. I hope that answers that question. I know the syncing of different files can get confusing. I would say to keep it simple, keep in mind that you should always have your files that are accessible across a whole group of people or a whole department or team. Make a team for that, and then those files can live there and you can interact with them there or in your File Explorer. You don't need to go out to SharePoint to do so. That probably makes it a little bit easier. And then things that are for just you, store in that OneDrive folder, and that way you can know that they're safe and backed up.
Great. Take one more before we move on. Brenda had asked, if we are new to Teams, what functions would you suggest to start with, or is it easy enough to roll out all the functions all at once?
Great question, Brenda. I would say my answer is a little bit of both. I would advise to just let everyone start using Teams, and they're going to see and have nearly all of the ability with just basic Microsoft licensing. You'll have the chat, you'll have the Teams feature, your calendar will integrate with Outlook. You'll have the ability to make video calls internally or even schedule video calls and audio calls with clients via Microsoft Teams. And you get that file structure when you bake it into those teams. And then the reason I said do both is I would say you don't necessarily have to roll out the higher level features that come with Teams. So when I say that, I'm talking about using maybe the Microsoft phone system within Teams. Maybe that's like a second step or a phase 2 that you would want to do once everyone's more comfortable with the app and using Teams just in their day-to-day work. Then you can kind of start to build those other features in, like the calls and phone system.
Cool.
All right, great. Let me pull up the PowerPoint again here, and we'll dive into a few more tips that we have before we sign off. All right, can you see that okay, Eric?
Yeah, and so user presence, It's interesting. We've been using this stuff through, Office 365, now Microsoft 365 for quite some time as an organization, and we've rolled it out for dozens of other organizations. And the incremental updates that happen, very similar to like when you wake up and your smartphone has just done an update, you have new features. And they're so incremental that you forget to notice just how valuable they are. And we end up taking them for granted so much that we actually had a hard time thinking about what are some of the great features that are so small but so effective, or like they're just force multipliers. So when we think back to the why of this presentation, that we're working from home remotely, this feature here that you get by being in the cloud helps us understand what people are doing. I can't look over to Shane's desk or Ryan's desk or Nicole's desk and see, are they there? Are they on a call? This helps understand what people's availability is in our organization, so we kind of know if we can ping them or ask a question, or if they're not getting back to us, are they away from their desk? And you can change these statuses to manual statuses too, so you can say, be right back, eating lunch, grabbing a bite, walking the dog, whatever, so people have some sort of a semblance of, oh, how was the walk that you went on when they come back, right? So now it's just enabling some more of that remote workforce and helping us understand what everyone is doing, so you're not wondering, are they really at their computer or are they not? So that's just a really cool feature that kind of comes with all this stuff, and it's a linked with your Active Directory, so you can see it across your organization. It's something that I've enjoyed using remotely. We use it obviously not remotely also, but it brings a whole new meaning to it now.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
The Microsoft My Analytics is another one that all of a sudden just kind of got lit up one day, and suddenly I'm starting to see things like you've had this much focus time, and here's your top collaborators, and oh, by the way, you were in a meeting because it's synced with your Outlook calendar, but you were sending out a lot of emails, so you weren't paying attention. So it really is interesting to see individually, introspectively, what you're doing and how you can optimize your day and your workflow. But additionally, if you're a team lead, good to understand how you can come in and coach people and help them with things and take things off their calendar, or maybe make a meeting shorter, etc. It's really powerful tool that you don't get if you're not in the cloud. So these are these incremental things. Insights is tied very, very closely with that. You'll see this in your ribbon across the top of Outlook. So if you click on that, here's some things that you might see. Everyone's is going to be a little bit different. Shane took some screen grabs of his. What types of things did you notice here, Shane, for yourself?
Yeah, the idea of insights is really just designed to help you kind of structure your calendar better, right? So you can see it's reminding me, hey, you've got some open slots in your calendar. Maybe you should book that for focus time now, so that you have that chunk of time to kind of dive in and do some deep work. It's a very slick tool.
Cool. Some other things that, when we talk about these incremental changes, I know the arrow's pointing at Git add-ons, but let me touch on the other one first. Coming soon, if you're a trailblazer or a trendsetter or a risk taker, you could turn that on and you're going to see things before most other people. So it gives you an opportunity to kind of try some things out and be a first mover or a first adopter of some of these feature-rich things that Microsoft is rolling out daily almost in some cases. I have that turned on. I love to try to leverage technology as much as I possibly can to make the most out of what I'm doing from a productivity standpoint. So that's a neat feature. And then if you click the Get Add-ins, you're going to get a whole list of things you can bake into, in this case, Outlook. Some of them more effective than others. Maybe you want emojis if you're doing a lot of email marketing and you want to have a subject line that can really give you some emphasis on things, and you can't do that without some sort of way to bake that in, or Giphy. But then there's HubSpot for CRM, and the list kind of goes on. This scrolls for a long time. You can search for a lot of stuff. Obviously, we see Salesforce and Evernote. The one that I think I've probably used the most from a practicality standpoint is DocuSign. So sending emails with DocuSign and having that right there inside of the email that I'm about to send has been incredible. It just shortens the timeline for things, and then it's not putting the onus on someone to physically print and scan and sign and etc. It's just, here you go, here's a DocuSign. So it makes it easy on both parties, and that was a great add-in, as an example, something practical.
Cool. Yeah, so those are some great little tips and tricks that kind of fall by the wayside when we're talking about these bigger apps. That's really everything we've got for you guys today. Before we dive in and answer a few questions, I did just want to call out, we've got another exciting webinar 2 weeks from now, so Wednesday, May 6th. Same time, same Teams webinar environment, so I guess probably same place in your house too. You can join us to talk about disaster recovery plans. With the pandemic and everything that's going on, it's really important to know that your business's technology is safe. And so we'll touch on all different kinds of backup abilities. We'll show you, how we back up and manage servers in an environment, as well as maybe backing up your Office 365 instances. And then we'll talk through some disaster recovery situations and tools you can use to get your business back up and running as quickly as possible in the event that there is a disaster or an issue that comes up. Cool. With that, we'll open the floor for some questions. I see one here already that I wanted to answer. I responded, but it was Barbara asked us, how do you access some of these other features if you only use, let's say Word, Excel, and PowerPoint with your Microsoft 365 account? Some of that will depend on your license, but the easiest way to figure it out is to go to portal.microsoft.com and sign in with your Microsoft account credentials, and you'll see all of the apps that you have readily available to you. You can also possibly edit your subscription from there if you're an admin, or talk to your IT team to adjust your subscription if there's some features you want. Generally speaking, we didn't touch on a lot of the licensing today, but generally speaking, if you have an Office suite, a Microsoft 365 license, you're going to have a lot of the basic apps that we touched on today. So you'll be able to use OneDrive and Outlook for your email. Those sorts of things are going to come baked into most of the subscriptions, so they should be readily available.
And one that we didn't touch on that I think I didn't realize that you and I use, Shane, is Stream. We host the SWICKtech podcast, the leading business podcast, and we use Teams to do that recording. We click record, just like we're doing this webinar too, and then that gets stored in Stream, which is kind of a video file repository. So then we can all access that video and download it and edit and do whatever we need to do with it. And that can also be used kind of in the company intranet that we talked about very early on with the SharePoint site. Other interesting ways that you could maybe leverage that is if you're doing interviews remotely, maybe you record that interview so management can review, and you could say, hey, instead of taking all these notes, just please watch at 16 minutes and 14 seconds in where I ask this question to hear their response. So some really, again, trying to go back to how can we leverage all of this stuff for the remote workforce and everything we're doing. There's just an abundance of ways that you can leverage this stuff, and it's hard to cover them all, honestly. There's just so many things you can do.
Yeah, cool. All right, so we've got another question here. If two people have a chat going in Teams, can anyone other than those two people access or see that chat? So a great question. The plain and simple answer is no, that's only available to you. You don't have to worry about your manager appearing in your chat conversation and talking to you, that sort of thing. But do keep in mind, this is a business grade platform. And so if need be, there are ways for administrators to export chat history, if there's legal reasons or something of that nature. It's not the same as forwarding email though. You can't give someone else access to your chat, if that makes sense.
Good question.
Yeah, all right, cool. We got another one here. Does Microsoft 365 have an email campaign program similar to MailChimp? Oh, Eric, you might be better at answering that question.
Yeah, we're new-ish to Microsoft Dynamics. We're slowly lighting up a lot of capabilities there. And in fact, Ryan, who's moderating this, might know more because he does a lot of our email campaigns through MailChimp. MailChimp's really easy to use. There's a lot of integrations with it. We have not eaten our own dog food with that yet. So I wish I could answer you better there, Martha.
But yeah, Martha, Microsoft 365 offers Microsoft Dynamics, which is like a CRM, a full-on. So it's going to be even more robust than MailChimp. You might, like Eric said, integrate MailChimp into your Dynamics environment so that it makes it easier to use.
I will say the tagging feature in MailChimp has been pretty awesome.
Nice.
Cool.
Great. I think
that's thanks everybody for joining us today.
Yeah, perfect timing. Thanks everyone. Hopefully we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. We really appreciate your time, and we hope you got some value out of this, and feel free to follow up with any other questions you might have after the webinar. Have a great day.